Hey, Stronghold crew, we'll get started with episode 25 soon. But I first want to welcome you to part 2 of a podcast that I had with Jen Becker around identity. While listening to episode 24 isn't necessary, I do encourage that you go back, become familiar with Jen's work, and gain some context as we jump right in today. Jen joined the Stronghold as my first guest back in episode 3, Servant's Heart. And if you'd like to catch up with her background, it is one of my favorites. This episode uses an identity exercise called the conflict map, and I am the subject. The discussion was unscripted, raw, and emotional. I apologize ahead of time for any minor audio issues. The immersive experience took my focus off the mics at times. I ask that if you get something from this podcast today and this 2-part series, that you share it with a family member or friend or coworker that you believe might benefit. I believe that living in our true identity changes our entire world. So with that out of the way, enjoy part 2 of my conversation with Jen Becker on identity. And talk all day long.
Yep, for sure.
That's why you were the first 2-time guest. I'm pretty much not. I don't like the guinea pig, but hey, I'm offering it up. So
Yeah.
let's walk through this identity exchange exercise.
Awesome. So so if you want, I actually encourage people is like just use piece of paper. I think it just helps.
This one is that okay?
Yeah. And so draw a line down the middle of the page.
Okay. Left, right?
Yep, just vertically, yep.
Okay.
And on the left up here, it's gonna be external conflict.
Okay.
And so, like I said, an external conflict is something that you're experiencing in life right now that feels burdensome, like it's lacking peace, or like it's chaotic in a bad way. I say in a bad way because I've had people be like, I actually kind of love chaos. I'm like, okay, the kind of chaos that doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
that feels bad.
It's just chaos.
Yeah,
it,
exactly. Yeah, so even
I understand.
Yeah.
This section, I both.
Yep, same.
Okay.
And I love the fun chaos. The other chaos is the one that I don't want. So lacking peace, burdensome, or chaotic.
Okay.
That when you think about it, it maybe elicits some kind of negative feeling in you.
Okay.
So yeah, even as I say that, like, what's the situation that comes to mind?
Work. Yeah.
Okay.
Set my career, who I am, to make money.
Yep.
And to make everything go. It's very in conflict and it's very in chaos. It's the people I'm around, it's the environment, it's the influences, because now it's seen that the Lord has a deeper purpose for me.
Yep.
And to help people find their power, their value, their true identity in life, and to give to them what the Lord's blessed me with over the last handful of years, and really start living life and to start being and growing into and working towards something that the world needs.
Yep.
And to reflect His light. And so I pull into work. He kind of gave me some respite, I feel like, the last 2 years, where he said, you serve a team, right, Dave? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 9 people. And he said, well, what do you want from our corporate culture? And I said, well, I would love somebody to be an advocate for me, because in that large corporate setting, nobody's an advocate for you.
Yep.
I think you mentioned people seeking promotion for themselves and you're in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And even the best of intentions, people get into that headspace. And then the other is helping people see their value and appreciating the value that they bring to the team, the good work that they do, the extra time they put in, the little piece of life that they exchange for something that,
Yep.
And so he said, well, you can be an advocate for your team, right? Well, yeah, I clearly know what that looks like.
Yep.
And you can assign value, and you can be a good steward of the monetary and help them get to promotion and build them up, even at the expense of of yourself.
Yep.
I said, yeah, I can serve that. And that kept me going. That kept the vitals, the heartbeats.
So how long?
2 years.
Yeah.
And so in that time, getting the world sees that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the feedback from the world was, so from my company was literally, I go grab the review. It says, they said, Dave, you're the best people leader we have at Optic. It's a pretty big company, and you're the best people leader. And so since that review a little over a year ago, I now have no team. I've been moved to autonomous contributor, they call it.
Wow.
So where you just kind of go off and do your work yourself. You don't need anybody directly. And so that's part of that anger with God. Like, you called me to this. I can keep the heartbeat going. I can keep some purpose and some mission going here by leading others and being an advocate and assigning value.
Yep.
Now you lead no one.
Yeah.
So what is going on? And so that led into a little bit of conflict with God directly, saying just that. Like, I don't understand what you have for me here anymore, Lord. On the retreat over the summer, over the last handful of years, working in men's ministry and trying to be a man that is focused on actions in your life and following you and really growing into a deep appreciation where I really don't want anything besides seeking God and the path that he has for me, because I realize it's so much bigger than I can even dream of.
Yep.
And I know where the previous, whatever 43 years took me, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. Like we said, there can be good in all, but going that direction, I feel like every day I'm there now, I might be running into the 48, almost 50, and 50 is starting to rear its head a little bit too, because I shared with a friend that's the first time it really hit me heavy the other day that 50 is coming up. And it's just a number. And, I know people that are 50 that are about ready to check out, and know people that are 50 that are phenomenal.
Yep.
It's a mental, it's like a time's ticking, and there's a bigger purpose to serve. And I'm not in it. I'm getting stuck on the bench here. And
so zoom in for this conflict, zoom into a specific about the job. Like, even when it's like people say work, I'm always like, okay, be specific. Like, is there a specific relationship, a specific like thing within it, specific even appointment that's coming up that you're dreading, or assignment that you have to work on that's, that feels like empty and stupid and pointless because it doesn't involve people or whatever it is. Like, is there a specific thing? And I find the more specific you can be in this process, the better, because,
So I think drilling down is the relationships.
Okay.
We had new leadership come into a scene last September.
Yep.
And they've kind of, they had established teams and solutions and kind of go-to people. And so when they came in, the people that were in place, my team, my people, our large organization, either we fit or we didn't.
Yep.
And if we didn't, we were kind of not pushed aside, but our teams are taken.
It's like kind of minimized.
Yeah.
And
everything you did great.
Yeah.
Your leadership up to that point said you're phenomenal at. New leadership came in and exchanged it. And then I think if drilling down more, very fresh, is my most recent review. So I said, well, I said before going into the review, I said, I know I don't have a team anymore, but I really kind of expect like top scores, because everything that I was asked to do, I executed on. And then the person who delivered my review is my new director, and my old director wrote the review, but didn't have to present it to me.
Got it.
And it was my worst ever. So it scores on a 1 to 5, and 1 or 2 being like, you're going to be on corrective action. You're probably not long for this world, court structure. 3 is meets expectations. 4 is like exceeds. 5 is like you're getting a promotion.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was doing 5s. If you would have given me 4s and SC, because like you can't work to promote me monetarily, fine.
Yep.
Right? And I could have seen that coming too. But 3, it was definitely a gut punch. And then all the language in the review too. If I listened to it, I would have thought, oh, at the end of that, there's a 4 or a 5. There was no constructive feedback or no.
Wow.
It's like, you're being you, and we love you.
Yeah.
So keep being you.
But also,
you is just average, and there's no place for you here.
Wow.
So what that's telling me again is the team was taken away, and I'm looking to God, and like, I don't feel like there's nothing I can serve here.
Yep.
And it's a lot of time. It's a lot of mental capital that you use.
Sure.
Exchange, even when you're kind of on autopilot with role.
Yeah, but it's still
taxing. It's like, I'm here, and it could be.
Yep.
I could be pushing what I really feel like my passions in life are forward.
Yep.
And then to have someone basically say, yeah, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Because translate, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, we have no plans to promote you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do it. You're going to continue to do a great job. We're not going to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, then it's like, well, okay.
So then, go down that next phase then is the internal conflict in that. So this is the external. You can look at it and be like, okay, there's the situation. So the next, we're going to do kind of a quadrant down. So the next one down is internal conflict, which is where you're really going to try to name a couple of feelings, like how you feel about the situation, and in an honest way. For me, I don't know. I think that I'm learning a lot of people don't feel as confident with naming feelings as they maybe thought that they did. So oftentimes I use a tool called the feelings wheel in this part because it's helpful. Like oftentimes I think I'm mad, but I'm actually disappointed, which is not the same. Or I'm sad, but I'm actually afraid, or I'm, whatever. And so it's really helped me to kind of nail down how I'm actually feeling about something and communicate more accurately how I'm feeling about something. Because I think that's a big part of it, is that, somebody can assume you're mad, but maybe you're not actually mad. Maybe you're actually like super bummed about it, And so that's really helped me. So naming and you already were able to pop some out. So you know how I feel about this. Yeah.
I'm an empath. So
I love it. Those are easy for you. Yeah.
So internal conflict is definitely a lot of confusion.
Okay.
And that's been a lot of the relationship with God in coming in. I don't get this.
Yeah.
I think that the last 2 years have been spent. Okay, I can serve a purpose here. I've also been looking externally, and I don't know if I should do this, but I could add up the list of like basically no's and rejections that I've got.
Sure.
And it's in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And so confused because coming in kind of a full head of steam, but also appreciating that the Lord took 2 years to kind of get me here for a reason.
Yep.
The person that if I would have sought a different career right out of the gate 2 years and gotten it, I would have just been the same person in different grass.
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't
exactly.
Greener, it would have been the same grass.
Yep.
And would have been kind of right where I am right now.
Yep.
In some given time, probably more rapid succession.
Sure.
That he made me appreciate what I was really looking for.
Yep.
And then, I would approach the search and the people that I was coming into contact with, Christian people with beliefs, or just moral people or companies that are a little bit smaller scale and not so like confused about their direction because they have to ultimately deliver profit.
Gigantic. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a much more pure search. Mm-hmm. And so, that's, I feel like it's changed me. So I'm not going to try to self-counsel myself. I'll just be really honest. Like I've been confused. I feel lost because I feel like there is purpose there.
Yep.
And there could be I'm ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've told many people, like, if you give me a little runway,
yep,
just wait.
Yep.
I'm ready to go.
Yep.
I feel tested because I feel like what I hear is God's timing is perfect. Mm-hmm. But I'm 48.
Yep.
Almost 50.
Yep.
And I don't want to wait till I'm 50. It's
yep.
been 2 years. I don't want to wait another 2 years.
Yep.
To really start going with this. And then unwanted.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, because going back to the Wild at Heart retreat, the two big things I took away was not a priority and not enough. And so when literally hundreds of companies see a guy with 20-some years experience, a master's degree, and like flawless execution as career, and for some reason the answer keeps being no,
mm-hmm.
eventually you turn that inward.
Yeah.
It must be me.
Yeah.
Or it's God's timing. And then there's some resentment coming from my directions towards God, because I understand my existence here is it's finite.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And where my purpose, the kingdom that I serve, is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm. And I would even argue that who you are is also eternal. Your physical body, but there's a legacy piece in there that what you're doing now doesn't just live within your body.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It is eternal for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, ready to go. Feel like I have purpose, direction,
Yeah.
passion, motivation. And I feel like I'm going through quicksand
Yep.
in the wintertime.
Yep. Okay. So we move to the next part. The next sort of section is fear, identifying fear.
Okay.
And to me, there's $1 million question in this part that I love. That this is a question I ask myself every single day. What am I afraid? And you kind of already started on this path. So what am I afraid this situation says about me? Or what am I afraid my feelings about the situation says about me? And this is important because oftentimes this is where false identities are living. Those
situation. What
am I afraid this situation says about me? This job situation in my most recent review, like what am I afraid could actually be true about me? Because the best lies are partially true.
Yeah.
You know, like they're partially true. And that's the thing. That's what sucks. So it's like, what am I afraid this actually might mean about me?
Yep.
And then sometimes in our feelings about it, like what am I afraid these feelings about it says about me? Or what does it mean about me? Which ultimately, yeah, I'm curious, like what, if you answer that question, what am I afraid that this situation, kind of already been saying part of it, but I'm just trying to verbalize it here.
All right. So you're in, this is just, all this is top of mind, and you never asked this for, I've never heard this. That's why I didn't even dabble in what Jamie and that identity exchange have. What I am afraid that the situation says about me is that I am exactly in the wrong place in life.
Yeah.
That I am seeking a corporate career and promotion, and that's run its course and it's over. And, you know, what's really scary about that is that I still hang on to, you know, we used to sit around our kitchen island and have dinner or lunch as a family. And, you know, kids would ask really young, you know, what do you do for a living? And, you know, you don't really rattle off like healthcare analytics. They don't really give a crap. But here's the story, Jenny, and it's still true to this day, is that I go to a job and I make money that makes all of this work. Yeah. And I kind of move my arms around the kitchen island in a gesture and love and the food and in our home and our dog and in this place that has been built up because I've had that career. And so I'd say I do all this to make this work. You know, I do this job, whatever it is, to make this work. And when you're a dad, that's a number. You know, that's a dollar figure. Yep. You know, dad or a mom. In my case, you know, being a dad, it really, my wife stayed home for the first 10 years of her boys' lives. And biggest blessing ever. Sure. People ask me, hey, why do you have such respectful young men? Point right to my wife and the sacrifice that she wouldn't call it a sacrifice. And it wasn't a sacrifice, but that different course that we took. For sure. Yep. And it's paid off, but we put things aside and that put a lot of weight on my shoulders. And I had to provide. And there was ebbs and flows. There was unemployed Dave and desperate and seeking something new and taking wounds and being told you're not enough and not being told, but reinforcing, you know, behaviors that would reinforce that. Right. And then there was identity sought from promotion. Wow, I'm getting promoted. People like me. I'm doing a good job. I'm changing at the time, I'm changing this culture. Yep. I'm bringing the best me to it. Yep. And people like being around me. And then, you know, that's cyclical. And so now I'm on the bottom of one of those cycles. Yep. And that's non-existent. Yep. Going back to the previous unwanted, what the situation says about me, like maybe what I'm coming to realize is that I'm just in the wrong situation. And then I have to be bold enough to not be in that situation anymore. And that scares the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. It really does. Mm-hmm. That I could. So then the next section down is really identifying false identities that are coming out of this place of fear. Fear is almost like a magnet. In the recovery world, we have an acronym for fear that says false evidence appearing as real. Yeah. And so whenever there's a place of fear in us, if I'm afraid of that actually being true, that I'm exactly in the wrong place doing the wrong things, like I'm going to find false evidence appearing as real that's a true fact. Like fear is magnetic. False identity is also magnetic. It's almost like a container that we're willing to just
gather information. Like, I don't know who said it originally, but you're always going to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm believing that, I can find all the evidence in the world to support this thing that I believe is true, that I'm exactly in the wrong place right now, right? Yeah. And so some of those false identities, what they come out, though, the important part is that they come out in an I am form. I don't know how you would put it, but I am what? I mean, you already said unwanted. That's for sure a false identity that I would say needs to be addressed. But even in the fear part of it, you said, I mean, I am exactly in the wrong place.
Yeah, I think I think actually one way it came out, and for the 2 years of kind of the Lord's revealed, and very recently is this podcast journey, because you start your voice on audio, and then you listen back to it, and talk about conversation with yourself, and conversation with others. I would say, and I was talking to my friend Greg recently, you do the podcast, so I'll do it today, and then I'll go home and I'll edit it, and I re-listen, and it's somewhat different.
Totally.
You hear the exchange. We're in the exchange right now.
Yeah.
We're in the conversation.
Yep.
And then you get to hear it. And I think that what I heard through that, and then also being a part of the Forge Ferocity group out in Washington, is people appreciated me for me.
Yes.
I brought authentic self, and there's people who will receive that. And so, what the false identity comes out through that fear is that I've lost it. Like, I don't have a lot to contribute. To be honest, like I don't. Maybe I can speak words really good, but if I can't even, like, no one wants, so I can't even make this career progress. And if I can't do that, then it's like, how am I talking to guys that are having trouble with their career progression? How can I minister to them? How can I speak truth to them? How can I bring value? Like, a lot of guys are like, hey, can you take a look at my resume? And I'm like, why the hell do you want me to look at your resume? I can't help myself.
Yeah.
And so
there's a false identity in there. What do you think that is? Like, what's the belief behind that?
I think that if the false identity is, that's why I go back to it's feels like it's surroundings. I feel like I'm just in the wrong place. Because if I'm in that group in Washington, really well received. And not only that, but I want to bring value to that situation. I go to work, it's like not really well received anymore.
Yep.
And I don't want to bring value to that.
Yep.
And that's so not my nature.
Can I tell you what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
That I'm incapable, which is not actually what you're saying with your words, but you're saying I'm putting my whole ass into this.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens.
And it's not, no.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not working. The deepest fear in that, all of this energy and effort and like positivity and energy, momentum moving forward, and it's not working how I'm expecting or wanting or hoping that it would work. There's actually a deep fear in there that I'm incapable, which I think makes all the sense in the world, Dave, because the fact that you have a whole podcast around capability, like the place that we are most deeply wounded is actually the place that God has us to be. Like the fact that like you have a podcast about capability colliding with a belief that I'm not capable, which is evident. That to me, that is like evidence when we see those kinds of like colliding belief systems. Like, I want to be capable, but deep down, I actually don't believe I'm capable because I'm seeing all of this evidence that's proving that I'm not capable, because all of my best effort has gotten me here. Like, that's what it feels like, right? And so as I'm thinking about that, I mean, I have so many questions, but just for the sake of like what we're doing today, I want to kind of walk you through. So how do you feel about that? The capable, does that feel like truth to you, that there's a?
Yeah. Well, I think that came out a little bit when I said I'm trying to help and guide other men.
Yeah.
They're at life. I'm like, well, who am I to tell you anything? It's like I have run a marathon.
Yep.
So if a guy asks, well, how do you train for a marathon and run a marathon? I've executed that.
Yep.
And I can help you. I
Yep.
feel very like fulfilled from doing it, and enough.
Yep.
Like I've proven that I'm capable.
Yep.
And I've gotten that capital with them.
Yep.
But I don't like talking to people and trying to help them in something that I can't even can't conquer myself.
Yep.
And so I think that I am. I want to be more capable. I want to provide for my wife, and I want to, I want to kind of recapture all that we put in aside, all that monetary gain to raise our kids the way God calls us to raise our kids and build a family up, how we build the family up. I want to recapture some of that, and it isn't available. Yeah.
Even that. Write that down. It isn't available is a false identity. It is.
Yeah.
That is a false identity. That's a thing. That's a lens that now you're looking at your life and you're saying, like, whatever I had back then that made me capable, it's no longer available.
Well, I would go beyond that. I'm curious to get your feedback. I've joked a lot that I feel, especially last year, that God has me in a choke point, meaning He is funneling me towards something intentional where He wants me, and I keep trying to go left, and I keep going to try right. I keep trying to find different ways to get out of it, and I'm in it, and that's a little bit of where the frustration's coming from. I'm like, okay, I surrendered. Like, where is this going towards? And when I say it isn't available, I guess I would preface that also by saying where I'm looking, and that's why I'm saying, like,
what's the it? It isn't available.
If I had to be honest, it's not so much like the prestige. Like, I don't care what you call me. I don't care if you call me VP, C-suite, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really the monetary. Like, I feel a lot of pressure to recoup that. That's been almost entirely set aside.
Sure.
And that's where the pressure lies. That's where the fear lies. If money didn't matter, if it's just me, I would have left my job 2 years ago.
Yep.
If it was a trailer down by the river,
right,
I'd have the cutest trailer down by the river, and I'd love life. Have people that I'm accountable for, and that I need to be there. And provide for. So that's not on the table.
The other thing that I'm hearing, that I'm curious, I mean, so as you're talking, part of this process is that I'm also listening to you, but I'm also listening to the Lord, and I'm curious about this belief. I heard it right away when you started talking about it, but I'm curious if this resonates as truth for you, that I believe that I am like the provider. Like, I'm responsible to be the provider, which I know as a man and as a husband and as a dad and those things, like that is true. But oftentimes that's an area that we're unwilling to allow God to, because actually, are you the provider? Like, no, you're the steward, And so when we're carrying the weight of God's job in our life, it's weight that we've never been asked to carry.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious for you.
Yeah. And I'm using the language like, I use steward all the time. We're stewards of our time. We're stewards of our belongings. We're stewards of the energy that we have that we bless other people with. Their money. That we're facilitators. That we facilitate spaces for the Lord to work. And I tell you, if I'm being completely honest, that's all this is that weight of that, the monetary. Like I come from a family that I don't spend a lot of time with my extended family. In a large part, my wife and I recreated our family because it was going to be our chance as a do-over. To repair wounds that they had pushed on us. And a big part of mine is family that's very fixated on the monetary and greedy, and they act really, talking about, like, my parents, my grandparents, generational.
So would you go back to that for a minute? Is there a memory that comes up about that when you think about a time where it's like, just whatever the Lord brings to your mind, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's more just like, where's a time that you realized that? Like, if you don't have money, you're whatever.
I kind of. I can go back to one that pops out very quickly. When you ask them a time or a moment. So we were at my grandparents' farm, and we were sitting in. We had a Chevy Blazer, so 2-door, and I was in the back seat, and my mom was in the passenger seat. My dad was in the driver's seat, and it's actually raining. It's like a really miserable night and dark, and we were leaving my grandparents, and my grandfather, who until then, I mean, he's just grandpa. I think I don't know how it's 8, 9, formidable. I kind of start to first kind of grasp like, okay, adults and what they do around me. And my grandpa comes out and it's raining. And my mom rolls down the window and my grandpa starts screaming at my dad. And my mom starts screaming at my grandpa. And then my mom starts screaming at my dad. And I'm like, what is going on? And it was about their business. I remember it being about their business. And I remember hurt feelings and people were being cheated and probably my grandpa was being greedy because that was a story I was always fed about him. And come to find out, probably everybody played a part in that.
Yep.
And so very vividly, I remember that I'm like, why are people acting this way? Like this isn't, I think just nothing more than that. Like I didn't want my parents to scream at my grandpa. I didn't want my grandpa to scream at my parents. And I didn't want people to argue about money, and to my detriment, probably, when my wife and I got married, we're like, we have to make money to an extent. Yeah. But that will come. But what we can't screw up on is our faith. So we are going to be the parents screaming at grandparents, grandparents screaming at parents, the parents that make our kids wonder if we're a priority or not. Yep. And we're going to change that. And we have. And
so still go back to that memory for a second, because that's significant to think about that and just even see yourself, like just allow yourself to see, like this is part of what's so fun to me is that there's that verse in Isaiah, I think it's 26:3. I think it's Isaiah 26:3 that says when we fix our eyes on Jesus that we can expect to receive his perfect peace. Significant because that word eyes is actually translated to like sometimes in different translations mind, but actually the original language is like imagination, that he actually wants to meet with us in our imagination. And so even as you're thinking about that memory, you did a really good job of like recounting what it was like. Your dad's driving, your mom's in the passenger seat, it's raining outside, you're in the back of this blazer. Like you're in the moment in there.
I'll go one further.
Yeah.
So it was raining and lightning. I actually remember the smell,
what does it smell like? Yeah.
Rains and and actually lightning in the air.
Yep.
Like to this day.
Yep.
That it takes me right back.
Yep.
And I actually haven't thought about that.
Yep. So just allow yourself to be in that moment for a second. I just think that that's important. That's significant to just be there and even to feel the feelings that you're feeling in the back of that seat, the back seat of that car. Like, what are some of the questions that are starting to come up, or what are you wondering about, or what? And you kind of started to say that, but I'm curious, like, why are people acting this way? Like, why are we yelling at each other? What, there's some beliefs that were established in that you're still carrying for sure.
Yeah.
So what comes to mind as I even asked that question?
I don't know. I mean, I see it when I see parents yelling at their kids in public, but it's like, who lets their kid, who acts that way in front of their kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't friendly. Like,
what did it say about you in it?
That I was just there.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't.
Did they ever apologize to you or say anything? Yeah.
No, that's and I mean, that was an incident, but it was, I could point out many of those. That was the most vivid. But that was just the way life was. Like, I never thought about like the way they thought about me in that scenario, because I don't think they were. What are you when you're very monetarily driven and obsessed with greed and that and wealth is you're internalized, right?
Yep.
There was no external. There was no exchange.
So you were confused. Yeah. That's a confusing experience.
Yeah.
So in that separate, because that really is a separate, that's a what we call separation, like a wound of separation, where this experience takes place that causes me to, in that moment, to see your parents in a way that was like, who are you guys? Like it's almost this posture of like, who are you guys? And almost for you to even see yourself, even in that question, why are these people acting this way? It's like this realization that I actually don't want to be like that.
Right.
I actually want to like separate myself from them, right?
Yeah.
And in that space of separation, what we do is, like, we call it a wound of separation. It's like this wound of separation. We actually create a false identity to protect ourselves from the pain of experiencing that. So even for you to create this false identity that I have to be, I have to be something different than they are in order to not experience the pain of being like that. I don't know what it is. I'm just kind of like talking, and I want you to like allow yourself to kind of think through that. Like, what in your mind, do you think that there's a promise that you made to yourself? Like, I will never, or I will always.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit about talking around the island with my kids and what I do, and when I explain what I do in life. I mean, I've never done like I've done a job that draws a paycheck that makes all this work, and what this was the family and marriage and being a good friend and and serving them first,
Yeah.
and then beyond that, serving friends and community, and that's where that's the only reason to do it.
Yep.
So it was never like, I think in that moment, to answer your question, I said, I'll never get to that point where money means that much.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I never wanted that. And so I get into a career and so I've worked in mortgage out of college. And even when I majored in something, it was like major in something to get a job to make money. It wasn't, I liked economics. I still do. Like I nerd out on numbers. There is a like there.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
interest.
Yep.
Passion, I don't know.
Yep.
Passion maybe applied like interest, like statistics and analytics towards like exercise and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I just nerd out on that stuff. Maybe performance.
Yep.
Because that's like people's true value and character.
Yep.
In testing themselves. But I think I said I never want that. I never want money to do that to my life. I never want to be an adult who acts like that towards other adults. And I've always done that. I've never stabbed him in the back over money. I've never, I've always kind of put myself second to people that want a promotion, because obviously they want it more than I do. I don't want it. I mean, is it nice? Because it kind of also fits like the affirmation piece, and you don't feel like you're enough and you're not a priority. And I think that's maybe what I'm seeking more than anything.
You just had two things in there. Yeah. That I'm not enough and I'm not a priority. I see that the little kid sitting in the back seat of the car, like your presence wasn't enough to not be screaming at each other and acting like that. Yeah. And you're clearly not a priority.
Yeah.
Or they would have been like, can we talk about this later? And maybe a more, honoring way. Like, do we need to traumatize this kid right now in this, like,
didn't think like that.
You were not a priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was, if I think back to that, so that makes it 8 or 9, probably about 3 or 4 more years of that just escalating, towards eventually my parents' divorce and their business falling apart.
Yeah.
And then that was it. And I was 12 and, there's a few years and I was pretty much on my own at 15, kind of like raised, had parents around.
Yep.
Like those are my parents by title and they're around.
Yes.
But
they're not. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which further then communicates, I have parents there, but I'm not a priority.
Yeah.
I'm not enough for them to want to show up for my life. I am not like wanted, like to be 15 years old and be like, well, it's just me now, it just proves it.
Yeah.
So then for you to go into this adulthood, go into adulthood thinking I have to be responsible for making sure that I don't ever put my family through that. It's like there's a belief system deep in there that's built up that says like I am the one responsible for making sure that my family never has that. Which while we are partially responsible, God is the one that's responsible for that, right? So even just go back to that memory again.
Okay.
And just allow yourself to be there. And I want you to just kind of look around the back seat of the car, look around the car, just look around the whole scene and kind of take it in. And I just want you to ask God, like, God, where were you? Where were you in this memory? Because there's never been a day that he hasn't been there. So just tell me where you sense him in there.
Yeah, I think if I have to answer, thinking about, first of all, when you think about that, I actually just had a conversation with a friend yesterday about the way we perceive ourselves and actually physical size.
Yeah. How do you see yourself in that?
Small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a kid. And so I think I'm small.
Do you notice anything else about you?
Cold, just kind of like, it was dark. I mean, it was night. It was a storm. How are kids in the storm? Probably a little bit scared.
Yep, a little sketched. Yep.
And then you asked where was God in that?
Mm-hmm.
I have to think about it now. as an adult, he was right there with me. Like I don't know why I feel like led to say that. I feel like he was there with me.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't there with my parents or my grandparents. He wasn't beyond that situation. He was like if I was in the back seat, and so it was a Chevy Blazer, it's like a 2-door, you hit hopping back and like literally feel like he was there. But
In the back seat?
Yeah, he wasn't beyond that.
Yeah. Where is he sitting, to the left or right of you? Where is his presence?
Yeah, I just felt
right
around.
Around.
Yeah.
You kind of notice what that presence looks like or feels like, or what is it? How do you perceive it?
I think like a I actually think like a guardian. Like just he was there on guard and I think trying to protect me.
Can you sense like his feelings toward you?
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel anybody threatens my sons, just that protector mode and loving, and I have you. So I think his feelings towards me were that that he had me, that I was safe, that that he loves me.
You ask him what he wants you to know about this memory. Whatever comes in your mind.
I think that's first thing that comes to mind, and why it's relevant with size is because I'm obviously not an 8-year-old boy anymore, and I've grown. But I actually just kind of came into emotion with the way I perceive myself in size versus how I actually am. As talking to a friend, I'm like, I think, sometimes we don't feel like we're the biggest or the toughest or fit or whatever. And then you take a picture. What's a picture? A picture is a reflection of you next to another person. And you kind of start to see yourself as the world sees you. And I think that he's saying like, no matter how capable you get, that you still need me. I'm still protecting you. And that, even today as a father, as a husband, serving others, is that I still need him. And that my capability, it won't remove that. That I can still get in situations like that where I feel scared, confused. So, going back to internal conflict in the words I wrote down, confused, lost, unwanted. I'm going to end up right back there if I try to take on too much. He doesn't want that. But to him, I'm still that 8-year-old boy, and that he loves and he wants to protect. That he stands in front of, like the world is really, well, in that instance, stormy and dark and confusing and scary.
People doing stuff that you don't understand why they're doing it.
Yeah.
You just imagine that you're like handing, it's almost like I'm seeing some of these false identities, like I'm not a priority, I'm not enough, I'm not capable, I'm not wanted. I'm almost seeing you like dressed in that as that little kid.
Yeah.
I'm this small little, vessel in this big, scary world, and it's like I'm almost seeing you like dressed in those things. Like I'm, not wanted, not capable, not enough, not a priority, too small. And I just want you to like ask him what he wants you to do with that. Like, well, just ask him, what do you sense he would want you to do with that stuff? Even if it's almost like, he's like, can you give that to me? Like, what does it look like? Even what does it visually look like for you to give those things to him, or to even show him what that is?
I don't think that he wants it.
Mm-hmm.
All those emotions for me, but I think that happened. You should, and Jenny, I tell you that memory I've never told anyone that memory. And I don't know that I've vocalized it ever. And I'm 48 now, so 40 years later, that memory is right there.
Yeah.
That I think that he wants me to seek him, and to trust that what the world is confusing and scary, and I don't understand why people are acting the way they are, to draw closer to him.
Yep.
Because it's right there. And he was right there that night. And
yeah, it's true.
I don't think that he wants to be wearing, those emotions. I guess the way I'm seeing it now is that I shouldn't be confused. I shouldn't feel lost. I shouldn't feel unwanted.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not true. I know that wasn't true then, but I was a boy.
Yes.
What do I know? And 40 years pass, you get a lot of perspective.
Yeah, so would you just imagine yourself almost taking, like, it's almost like I'm seeing you have like these 4 like sweatshirts on, like this little kid in the back seat, and you're like layered with these clothes. I just want you to like imagine that you're like taking off, however you're imagining it, like that you're taking off those things and you're like giving them to him. Like, okay, if you don't want me to wear these anymore, I am willing to give these over to you. Like, what does that look like as I'm saying that? What's kind of coming to mind?
I think that taking those off and giving those is control, in a way, to give control to God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what that looks like is, again, just speaking what comes to mind, is that I haven't fully done that. That trying to take up that role as protector, and to be strong enough. There's something you always hang on to, right? You don't ever want to expose yourself, and to give up so much control that you would leave your loved ones, at risk, and yourself. And so I think taking that off is a level of trust that I haven't explored, that I haven't been willing to give. I think that I can see my focus. I mean, the Lord's just saying the focus has always been relationship for you, and you detested wealth, and you detested money, Dave. And in a little bit, or in a little microcosm, that's why I'm hanging on to a little bit of trust that I'm still putting in myself, and that little bit of strength that I'm still protecting myself with, and not exposing myself. And I don't think that I want to think that up until now. I've thought that I'm just going to get hurt deeper.
Yeah. So as you think about that,
Yeah.
do you feel like you are willing to maybe try handing that over and see what happens?
If it's just me, if it's just me, if I wasn't married and I didn't have kids.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%. And I don't know.
Would you ask him about that? What do you want me to know about my relationship, or my role with my kids and my family?
That my wife wants to see the truest form of me, that she loves me for who I am, that she's in a relationship with me because the man I am, the husband and the father.
Yeah.
That none of that has to do with money. I've got 2 boys. I want to see their dad. When I start living that life that God had for me, and taking actions in that worth, and living by example, providing an example, a true example for them. That's why I saw them take off.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they want to see from Dad.
Yep. I see a direct correlation in that too.
I've never told them, they're never going to be like, Dad was the best analytics guy in the world, or a super successful analytics to that, because even if I was, it doesn't really matter to them because I've never raised them to have that matter.
Totally.
It doesn't matter.
Yep.
It's something they do, but it's not who they are. So I'm hanging on to them. If I'm hanging on to that emotion and that control and not giving that trust for them, I think that's probably just something I'm making up. That I'm scared to let that go.
That's a fear. Yeah, that's a fear. Which is it's a valid fear to be able to ask him about, like, you know, for you to just ask the question, God, what do you mean at all about my family? Like, how do you feel about my family? Even that, maybe that's a better question. Like, how do you feel about my family? Like, let him show you how he sees your family.
I know that. I think about that every day, and I feel blessed by God to have that relationship. I mean, so we never took big family vacations, and I remember we went out to Seattle for our first like plane ride, you know, and then the boys were like, part of us for sure a teenager, and Trump's 4 years behind him. So I mean, they're growing boys.
Yeah.
Before we even fly on our first plane with them.
Yes.
And we got out there. I think we spent 4 or 5 days. By the end of the third day, we were staring at our hotel ceiling, just wanting to be home, because home is where we all want to be together.
Yeah.
And to this day, even our pets, like our last lab, when we were all 4 of us, my 2 sons, my wife, and I, our lab was even happier.
Yeah.
And and it just felt complete. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the way I feel about my family. That's the way the family feels about each other. And it's the best thing.
And that's how God feels about your family. That's really the question. I asked you, like, how does God feel about your family? And then he showed you that picture. Like, that's how God feels about your family. And I wonder, I'm curious, but what's kind of going through your mind, but it feels to me like he's saying, like you and I created that together. Like, I want, this is what I want for your family, and this is what I'm willing to show you. Like, this is what the thing that you desire for your family, I actually also desire for your family, Dave. You know, like, my desires line up with yours.
I think that when we started talking, Jenny, we started talking about, as parents, things that we maybe unintentionally, that when we go with the flow or keep up with the Joneses, that lead us towards teaching our kids something that we had a chance to look back on. It wasn't as important as we thought it was. Yeah. Maybe it didn't deserve the emphasis that we placed on it. So my youngest son is just transferring to St. John's, trying to find out, quote unquote, what he wants to do in life. And, you know, he's going to rack up some student debt. And my oldest son graduated from University of Utah. It did. And now he's kind of coming around the first review time. He's doing something he loves, you know, but the monetary is not quite there. And I'm trying to avoid having them become beholden, you know, to a world that, the way I explain it to him is, when you have money and you have time now, save it, because what you think you are going to spend it on is fleeting. But if you can spend it on being the dad that can be there for your kids someday, being there for your wife, not having her doubt how much you love her, and being in a relationship with her, and not having your kids ever think where they fall in that priority line with you. The world's tough and it requires a lot. Totally. So I'm trying to steer them away from that. But the way I'm doing that, I'm confused, you know, and I feel lost as a dad because I'm kind of navigating the space for the first time. Because no one cared. I mean, my parents, here's another great one that I hang on to. You know, I'm 17. I remember applying for colleges, and then it came time like, well, you have to pay for college. And my dad straight up came on and said, well, we never thought you were going to go to college. And my sister was freaking valedictorian, and I wasn't, you know, but I thought, well, at least I thought I was smart.
Wow.
So I tell you,
you didn't actually think you're
college. Well, what does that tell you? You're stupid. And it's okay. You know, I mean, I know I'm not now. But I'm trying to, with the boys, help them navigate, to avoid this, to avoid this feeling of being beholden, and like saying things like, well, if it's up to me, I'd leave. I wouldn't do this job anymore. It's not what God would have me. And it's not serving him. It's not serving me. It's just kind of reinforcing old wounds, you know, because what am I saying? Where am I for a professional standpoint after getting, you know, 25 plus years and seeking higher education?
Yeah.
Doing what I thought was a good job. I'm unwanted. I'm confused. I'm right back in that, that back of that blazer in that storm.
Yep. And beholden, to use that word that you've used a couple of times, beholden by this idea that if I give up these beliefs that I'm not a priority, that I'm not enough, that I'm not capable, that I need to be the protector, that if I give those up, that's better. But in reality, you're actually captive to that.
Yeah.
That's actually like a prison that you've put yourself in.
Feels like it.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, not really, then you kind of have a choice in that, right? Like there's agency always with God. So do I want to stay in prison to that? And to my current, like Dr. Phil's famous question, how's that working out for you? Like, it's like, how's that working out for you? Do you want to stay in prison? Do you want to stay captive? Like a captive is somebody taken against their will and held against their will. So I see you both as a captive in the backseat of that little car. Like you didn't choose to be there. You're put in that situation. You didn't choose, like, I want to go into this, have this experience today. Like you were taken captive in that situation and you're still captive in the backseat of that car, believing like I'm not wanted, I'm not valuable, I'm not capable of changing the situation, I'm not enough, right? I'm not wanted. I'm going to make damn sure that I'm a provider and a protector so that I don't ever have to have this kind of experience ever again. Yeah. And then God's confronting you with that, like, hey, Dave, maybe you want to try something else, And it's like, it's scary though, because can I trust you? Because really it's coming down to like, do you believe that God is who he says he is? That he's actually the provider, that he's actually the protector, that he's actually the one that gets to assign value and worth and a name to you.
So I'll laugh a little bit here so I don't cry as much. But when you mentioned that vision of like being captive and being in present, so we have 14-week-old puppies, and my wife purchased on Amazon like a confinement unit.
Yeah.
Like these cages with these doors.
Confinement unit is an official word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not big incarceration.
Sure.
I'm a huge proponent there.
Okay.
And we even joke, we're like, when they're by the gate, we're step back from the cell door, and, but it's funny when I take them outside sometimes, so I have 2 lab boys, Echo and Forge, and like Forge will come out and the door's wide open, but Echo will be like behind the cage, and he won't see that the door's open. And when you said that vision of being in present, yeah, I certainly feel that. I actually joke sometimes about present. Like, I'm like, present would be great. Present would be at least I can go work out and I can read and I can get to know people and talk to people. And I'm sure it's a lot worse than that. That's my glory.
With you, yeah. Let's go try it out.
I don't know what that says about people. It's vision that the nice parts of present, but with that's exactly what I thought of. Is like that. I think I am in this cage, but there's a door to it. And God's standing by the door, and it's wide open. And just like I look at my puppies, I'm like, it's open.
Yeah.
Go out.
Yeah.
We'll see that scares the hell out of me because I don't know. What does that look like?
Yeah.
I've only ever, when you're 15 and you're on your own, basically, I worked restaurant. I made money. If I wanted something, I bought it.
Yep.
If I wanted my friends to have something, I worked to buy it.
Yep.
If I wanted a car, I had to work to afford it, put gas in it to get someplace. And if I wanted to play sports, I needed to get myself to practice.
Yep.
So I've only ever basically worked for somebody.
Yep. Well, you've only ever been your own provider too.
Yeah.
I mean that's what, if I wanted it, I have to work for it. It isn't a bad thing, but it is an inaccurate view of our Father.
Yeah.
Our Father is a provider. You know what I mean? Like he really is a provider. And so it's like, he is not afraid, just like you as a dad are not afraid to like pull your boys aside and be like, hey, come here. We need to have a talk about something. And that's the way that he's doing the same thing with you. He's like, hey, come here, little Dave in the backseat of the car. Come here. We need to talk about something here. Do you realize that the door is open? Like you can actually get out and run. And you think that it's going to be way worse than it actually is. You don't even realize the joy that's on the other side of this, right? Like that's what you, as a father, it's like, and that's what you're doing with your dogs. It's like, bro, it's actually gonna be fun. Like, just the doors open, like, come out here and play. And it's kind of like, well, I'm kind of scared because what if I come out there and then fill in the blank? My family isn't provided for. What if? And he's like, okay, well, you have a choice. Do you want to stay in there where you play the game of what ifs? Then fear, and fear gets to be the boss, and fear gets to hold you captive, Or are you going to trust that I am who I say I am and that you can come out and that it's not up to you? That I'm a good dad. I'm not going to call you into something that is bad. I would never do that. You would never do that to your kids. You would only call them into goodness.
It's weird to think where you had talked about an incident, of a sister's or brother falling, and really not being a big thing, but something you hang on to.
Yep.
And it's weird how you can constantly come back to those times in life. So our oldest son lives with us right now.
Yep.
And if I have to think about the father that I'm being to him as I'm trying to help him navigate his career, I'm kind of slipping back into like the father being words in that area with him.
Sure.
Because I'm lost. Like, I don't know. So I'm telling him, well, you need to stick up for yourself. You need to, that your case.
Yep.
You need to ask for more, and you need to ask for promotion.
Yep.
And you need to do this, and you need to do that. And really, I feel like I'm doing it from a words perspective. And I also feel like the actions I'm putting forth, kind of the apathy that I have with my career right now. Because if they don't care, ultimately I'll put my efforts somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'll put my passion
somewhere
else.
Yep.
If they say, oh, you're not worthwhile, or we don't have a place for you, then I'm not going to ask for.
I'll convince you. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife's like, well, okay, there's something you can talk to. It's like, no, I mean, kind of when the collective work tells you something, that's kind of the end of the story.
Yep.
And if I have to think about, and I haven't thought about that until right now, I'm extremely upset with myself that probably have been for the last couple of years, but
that what? Finish that sentence. Upset with yourself that what?
That you thought you escaped being that guy that was all words and no action to your sons, and all of a sudden you're the guy that's all words, no actions to your sons again. That was a big one. That was a big one because it was impactful, Jenny, enough to change my entire life.
Yeah.
My physical fitness, the way.
Yep. I knew you before, so I've seen a distance. I've seen Dave's up to.
Yeah, I served him through. Served my creator through. In fact, we got a men's event coming up at church, and it's kind of God thing. We had faith, family, faith, fitness, serving. So we're gonna have 4 speakers. But we ended up kind of the timeline and stuff. We only have 3. And so I said, but the Lord put on my heart, oh, Dave, I got one for you. You could do like a Korean barbecue. You can meld these two, fitness and serving, because you need to be the best version of yourself to truly serve others. And that's why I made a change, and that's why action fed so much. And so that really hurts.
There's something really significant in that, Dave, that I want to draw attention to. That, do you remember what Jesus says, like, about why he came? There's a specific thing that he talks about, and in relation to when Jesus comes to wash Peter's feet, and then he's like, I'm going to wash your feet. And then Peter's like, no, sir, you will not be washing my feet. Like, you got this backwards. And Jesus is very like stark in that he says, I actually came to serve and not be served. And if you don't allow me to wash your feet, you actually have no part with me. It's really significant that we learn how to first receive from him. He's not asking us to serve him. He is asking that we allow him to serve us, and we give out of the overflow of that. That what we have to offer the world, if we aren't first receiving something from him, what we are giving away is actually a false counterfeit version. It's like us thinking up our best idea and trying to give it away. And so really, if we think about that, that is a stark, almost warning to Peter. He says, if I don't wash your feet, you have no part with me. Like, your kingdom participation is dependent on learning to receive from him. Like, if you want to participate in the kingdom, then you have to learn to first receive from him.
Yep.
And that is a daily, all of the things that I think that I have to do for him, for people, right? The first thing, it's like, get empty. Like that's our first thing. Get empty. Like all of the things, all of your opinions, your ideas, your to-do list, your task list. Like I need to release all of that. And the first thing I need to do every single day is learn to first receive from my Father. God, what do you want me to know about me today? What do you want me to know about this day? What do you want me to do? That I would first be filled up by him, by his ideas, his creativity, his thoughts, his truth. Like what he says about you is the most important thing. So if I'm walking out of my bedroom, I mean, for me, I don't even get out of bed before I do this process. Like, God, what do you want? What do you want to give me this morning? I almost picture like when my kids were little, they would bring like breakfast in bed on Mother's Day or whatever. You know what I mean? It was like this little platter with this little random assortment of God knows what on the tray, like, here, mom. And like, okay, cool. And it sometimes made sense. And sometimes it's like this cold waffle that's probably been out of the toaster for whatever. But in reality, it's like, no, God actually is like showing up every day. Like, Dave, hi, this is what I have for you today. Are you willing to receive it? And so often we're like, oh, no, thanks for that, God. Actually, I'm here to serve you. And he's like, actually, if you're not willing to receive what I have to give you, you actually have no part. Like, actually, please don't participate on my team today because you don't have anything to give away. And so I think I'm just thinking about this little kid that he sees you as this little kid in the backseat of this car. And he's like, Dave, do you want to receive something from me today? Do you want to receive something different to wear? You're wearing all of these labels that you think are true. You're stuck in this cage like your dog. Do you want to come out? Are you willing to receive something from me today? Yeah. How's that, Landon?
Yeah.
How did I say that?
Certainly do. I will say it's like, I see a lot of men now, and including myself, going to like the Wild Part retreat.
Yep.
And that was 4 days of separation from, that was pretty much just, I mean, there was guys there, but we're all in that state to receive.
Yep.
Matt Eckham's talked about that
Yep.
on the podcast. Talked to Josh Dietrich about that. 2 guys who went to that retreat. Mm-hmm. And then I have other guys who went to other versions, mm-hmm. A week-long retreat or a week out of the woods weekend.
Yep.
And, when I was there, that I started to receive.
Yes.
Obviously, it's driven a lot.
Yep.
Drove our discussion.
Yep.
When I came back, that was pretty fresh off that retreat.
Yep.
And it exposed those false identities. Mm-hmm. Not enough, not priority. I will say I thought about that driving here and thought about that yesterday in anticipation of our conversation, is identifying and even putting those on paper and putting those in a fire and burning those. Mm-hmm. It doesn't remove them.
No.
It's like a perishable skill if you don't provide that space. So that was space with me and space with God and to receive words from my Creator directly.
Yep.
More than I ever have.
Yep.
There's stuff I wrote down from that retreat. I don't know if I mentioned you, but I had never been like baptized that as they count it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like 12 or 13 and I got baptized. I was the worst version ever of myself.
Yep.
Like sprinkled at the Lutheran church or whatever it was that we didn't even go to in the family.
Yeah.
Oh, you could baptize people? And my parents just like,
sure.
I don't know.
We got one. Sign him up.
Yeah. He needs it.
Uh-huh.
And then I was supposed to get baptized through church when we were going up to the lake, and the lake got like swimmer's itch or whatever. And they're not doing it. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it because whatever. And then I'm sitting there at the edge of the river this summer while, or just sitting there by myself, and it's me, and not by myself, me and God.
Yeah.
And having the most raw discussions about life and me as a father and me as a husband and things being revealed that I never thought.
Yeah.
And it was that separation that you said. Mm-hmm. Of being in a state to receive. That's the only reason I went up there.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't go up there to get a break. Yep. I certainly had stuff to do. It was a lot for my family to kind of fly solo.
For sure.
Yep. Everything. But I need it. I told my wife, I need to go.
Yep.
Like there's something he has for me, and I received a lot. And then I came back and we had this page, Ash brought it with me, all these things I want to remember from that weekend and read back. And I started reading that for a few weeks after, and it kind of kept the emotions clean. And then, life happens. And then, work happens. And then you kind of get kicked like right in those false identities.
Yep.
And you get pulled right back
yep.
into you're not a priority. You're not that. And you tell yourself, like, I know that I am a priority.
Yep.
I know that I am enough, but then the world says otherwise.
Yep.
And when you're holding on to it, because that's where I said, like, if it's just me, I distinctly know now when the world's lying to me and presenting identities on me that like aren't true. And if it's just me, I'd run the other direction. But I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't do that for my family and for my wife. And we've had conversations like, how do we change this? And she's willing to run with whatever she trusts me.
She totally does.
Oh, that there tomorrow. And I have no plan.
And she's not like a helpless little, like, I can't do anything on my own. She's like a powerhouse. So for her to trust you says a lot about you,
And my sons. And my sons are powerhouses and smart, and they grow in front of them. And I think that what they really need to see is dad kind of like, lose those chains of life and to leave that behind and to we always laugh, we use the word duh. Just like go duh. That present door's been open the entire time. And I need to go. Because there was a mission for the last 2 years. It's just like it is an environment where those wounds that you don't want them torn open anymore. You want them to heal. It's just they're clawed. They're clawed open.
Well, and part of it too is, Dave, that you had all this success because, my friend Norris, he's one of my colleagues on this team, but he talks about how, like, as damaging as the curses of men are, so are the blessings of men. When you get all this, like, gosh, you're such a great, the feedback, you're the best leader of people we've ever seen. There's something that's built in us that's like, now, okay, that felt good to receive that. We've talked about this before, that affirmation part. It actually felt good for me to receive that. So I must need to move toward that. And so I actually think it's God in his kindness saying, like, hey, you're still too dependent on the praises of man. Like, come to me. I am your dad. I am your father. I will be the one to tell you what's true about you. You're giving the power over to these people to get, and then you then live and die by the curses, by the blessings and the curses of man. Like, you're either feeling alive based on how they're treating you at work, or you're feeling like, gosh, what the hell am I doing? This all sucks. And so it's like, I really think, and even my mentor Kelly says all the time, she says, when people are like approaching, like, I just turned 41. She's like, when I was turning 40, I was meeting with her when I first started meeting her, I was 38 or 39. And I felt similar to how you described, where it was kind of like, what am I going to do when I'm 40? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I just feel like I don't know what I'm going to do. This feels, whatever. And she's like, she had this picture in her mind of like hide and seek, like, or like how you count for hide and seek, and you have to, and you go like 40, 41. When you first start at the beginning, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But then your cadence has to slow down because the numbers get thicker. Like 41, 42, 43. Right now you're like 48, 49, 50. And then what comes after that in the game? What do you say? You're going to go find the people. What do you say? Ready or not? Here I come. It's that. I just sense that in this, that it's like you're in the prison, and it's like 48, 49, and you're like holding out this 49, 49, 49, like 50, ready or not, here I come. And I do just feel like all the things that you're experiencing right now are, one, God's like, hey, let's go back to that little kid though, Dave. Let's take off some of that stuff. I want to give you a name. I want to tell you who you are. I want to encourage you and strengthen you in the reality of who you are, not who these men say you are, not who these other people, these corporations and these systems say you are. I want you to be solid in the reality of who you actually are. And frankly, who he actually is. Like, when our understanding of God is distorted, it distorts every other thing. And so it's like, if you see yourself as provider, then you're not seeing him as provider. If you're seeing yourself as protector, then you're not seeing him as protector. And so it's really, I think, this exercise in connecting you to the accurate picture of him, you connecting you to an accurate picture of yourself. And from that then flows an accurate picture of the world, your kids, your wife, your marriage, your family, and your kingdom assignment. And so it just feels like this, like refining period that you're in, to me, when I think about it. It's like, there's like this refining that's taking place where the things that actually aren't supposed to be there, that's what refining is. It's burning off of the parts that don't belong.
I think that we go back to the word forge. So that group that I'm in, Washington, forge ferocity.
Yes.
That hang on to that word forge. I named one of my forge. It is that forging of who I am. And I think about a friend said something the other day. It goes back to like that sister and her brother too. This unfinished, undealt with things in life. I believe like my body and soul connection. I think it's intrinsically connected.
Yep.
And that's where like a lot of physicals come in. Because that's it. If you could do that, then you can overcome things mentally, or you could build yourself up and become more capable.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so 2 years ago, I was supposed to run the Minneapolis Marathon.
Yep.
I'm like, my knees like trying to come off, like my ligaments trying to come off the bone. The marathon, thank God, ends up being canceled. And I run like a 13 out of 13 back-to-back days. And it's one of the most excruciating things ever. But last year I did the Mankato Marathon. And the reason I bring that up is because that mind, body, and soul, from a soul connection, that whole process excited me a lot and scared me, to be honest, a lot. Because I always joke, like, or it's a quote actually, that things you should do in life excite you a little and scare you a lot.
Yeah.
Or excite you a lot and scare you a little.
Yep.
And those are worthwhile endeavors. And having that marathon, I injured myself. Like, why would you do that again? And you got kind of like your get out of jail card free. You don't have to do it. All I thought about for a year was that. It was like unfinished.
Sure.
I think that like that sister and her brother and a friend, talk about things that we have in life. How many of those things we kind of have to or go down the road, or they fall incomplete, or we don't see them to completion, or we don't deal with them, but then we just stuff them.
Yep.
Stuff them away.
I think we're not affected.
Yeah. I mean, I know that if I wouldn't have done that last year, that would have been the only thing on my mind still.
Yep.
But I needed to kind of put that aside and step out and complete that.
Yep.
Take that risk.
Yep.
But it was measured. I think about this situation. Like I always ask my wife, because we've been through 26 years of marriage.
Yep.
And different job changes and stuff. When has the Lord stopped providing for us?
Yep.
When have we ever gone without a meal? When have we ever felt like this is the last day of food and money and provision that He's given us? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
And He's spent the last few years placing people around me in my life that build up, encourage, and reinforce the best parts of me.
Yep.
I think that's a little bit of the desperation now. Is I know where I can't be anymore. In saying that, you always feel like you're cheating God a little bit because you're certainly capable. Right? But she's saying this isn't. And I love what you said too. Why would your leadership that has no intention for you to call out the one thing that you take solace that's like a reflection of God and leading people, and put that language into it?
Yep.
They could have said whatever.
But it's that very part of you that's actually under attack. That's the part. Like, God can keep you convinced that you're incapable of doing the thing, or that you are at the, you started with this with like, I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time, or something like that. Like, I'm exactly in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I'm exactly in the wrong place. If I'm believing that I'm exactly in the wrong place all the time, doing the wrong things, like, I mean, but yet he says, like, actually, let me show you where you are. You're a little kid in the backseat.
Yeah.
That's where you are. And I'd even be curious for you if you even just ask him right now, like, what did you call me back then? Like, what did you say? What did you think about him, that little kid?
I think the love is blessed and full potential and a friend. So I mean, that situation when adults yell at themselves, it's still anger, but I don't never yell at people a lot. So I see them as, think about that video, like those two, it's like a little black baby running down the street to a little white baby.
Oh yeah. And they like hug, just embrace. Yeah.
That's like, that's what I really get back to, is I really love people.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want conflict with them, because I think most of the conflict is not us.
Yeah.
It's not even I. It's something that got introduced, maybe for good intentions. You go back to my friends that Afghanistan and Iraq. Someone told them they had to be over there.
Totally.
Those are the bad people.
Yeah.
And they needed to go, and we were the good people.
The enemy gets confused all the time. Who's actually the enemy here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the most extreme scenario. And now they reconcile. They're like, oh no, we were just people.
Yeah. Which is the absolute truth. So even to think about yourself as even that little kid, a friend, that's being, to use your word, forged in the backseat of that car.
Well, I know people are going through, their own back seats, their own.
Every single person.
Yeah. I don't. But the only thing I want in life is people, and that quote, I want people to realize the value that the Lord, that their Creator created them with, that is inside them, that is not, it's relational between them and God, and to start walking in that. And they can kind of start like shedding those hurts and shedding those wounds and being the most sincere version of themselves. Because I've seen myself, in that scenario now, coming back and seeing like now kind of falling back in that old self. That is that's really painful to see that could happen. But that's everybody.
Yes.
The dad that I've been, for the last 5 years, especially, kind of really on like 7 years now, I'm very proud of. Yeah. Parents are going to make mistakes.
Totally.
It has not been a model of perfection, but it has been a model of, I'm really trying.
Yep.
Every day I wake up, every day I draw a breath.
Yep.
I'm trying.
And he's the one that's showing you that. I mean, that's the beauty of that. It's like the best father, to go back to the beginning of this conversation about paradigm. It's like the best father will show you how to be a good father. I mean, that's the thing, is all along he's been, he's the one that like woke you up to this idea. Like, hey, Dave, come here. We need to have a conversation. We got to do a different thing here. And you've like consistently obeyed and surrendered your understanding or your natural inclination toward fatherhood to what he would say about it, even consciously or not. He doesn't need us to be conscious to speak to us. You know what I mean? Like, he's fine with like planting seeds along the way. And then it's finally like this awakening to like, oh, it's actually like salt. It's actually been you all along. Here's me thinking that I had this. And he's like, no, it's actually, hi, new lens. Like there's something like scales fell from his eyes, and he's able to see that all along God's been inviting and speaking and leading you into being the dad that you've been for the last 7 years that you're super proud of. Like, if there's a list of things that you're the most proud of in the world, that's on the top 5 things in the list. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really proud of that part of my life. Right. And so it's like, okay, if that's the result of being led by God on how to do something, then why wouldn't I trust him with these other things to lead me in that way? Right. Like when I've seen the fruit, it's always a fruit test. Like, is this fruitful? I mean, the things that we hand over to him and say, what do you want to do with this, are always, it's not even a close comparison, like more fruitful from the list of like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Like, those always come from being with him. That's fruit of the spirit.
So I have a question for you. So you've obviously done this before.
Yeah.
So when you get people to the point of, this is what I know I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's very clear.
Yeah.
You said, to connect to an accurate picture of him.
Yes.
So that's something I can do.
Do it.
Like what? So with identity exchange.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of feel like that kind of ran it external conflict all the way down.
Yep. So then there's a whole other side of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go there. Yeah.
Okay.
So now identifying even just some of this list of beliefs, it really becomes now I actually get to ask Jesus, like, Jesus, this is what I'm believing about me. I get to ask God, if Jesus isn't your thing yet, or whatever, like God, or I would even encourage people. I was talking to someone the other day, they have a really hard time connecting to that idea of God or Jesus or whatever. And so it's like divine love, divine compassion, whatever it is for you, as a higher power than you. What is that? And so it's like, well, God, what if this is what I believe? What do you want to say about this? And I'm actually giving him a seat at the table and a microphone to say, God, we're going to do a podcast episode about this situation. Like, what do you want to say about this situation? And really just listen to that. And so really, that's what I would encourage you to do. Like, even just pick that picture of the backseat of the car. I mean, that's a perfect example. Like, he already spoke into that. Like, I call you loved. I call you blessed. I call you full of potential. I call you friend. So it becomes this. So we have these false identities at the bottom. We get to exchange it across. And I always draw an arrow going this way and this way, because over here is a true identity. So I get to ask God, what do you say about me in this situation? What do you say about me? So that's the bottom there. So even as you do that, and here's what I tend to tell people, like, just imagine that God's in that room with you. And sometimes people are like, I don't want to be in this room, then go somewhere else. I've had people say that if they're on a mountaintop, they're on a beach, they're on a dock, they're on a hammock, they're on their grandma's porch, wherever you want to be with God, you can be with God, or you can just be right here in this room with him. Just in your mind's eye, in your imagination, to be in a place with him that you ask him, God, what do you say about me? And then take, like, hear something, and just allow yourself to, like, and here's what we do. Every time this happens when I'm working with people, it's like the first thing that I hear, I want to bypass it. It tends to be either too simple, too small, too kind is what most people, it's like, that's too nice. There's no way God said that about me. There's a perfect example of, like, let's learn to see God more accurately, because he is more kind and more generous than we think he is, all the time, every time. However, even in our biggest exaggeration, we can't exaggerate his kindness for us. And so really, it's like, what does God say about me? Which then, across the street from here, in this little section, across from the I am statements, what we actually get to experience when we hear God tell us who we are. I say I'm this. What do you say I am? This is what I say you are, right? And then what happens is that we get to experience some fearlessness and some courage. So that's where the receiving comes in. I'm going to learn to receive what he says about me as the highest truth about me today in this situation, right? And fearlessness and courage start to show up, where now I'm looking at this exact same situation. Nothing about the situation has changed, but now the fear is no longer there. When I fix my eyes on him, I receive his perfect peace. Now I'm looking at the situation with new lenses I'm looking at it through a true identity, not a false identity. When I look at it with this false identity, I have the lenses that say, I suck, I'm not enough, I'm not wanted, I'm unseen, whatever, I'm not important. I'm seeing it through that lens. Over here, if I'm seeing it through this lens, where something like scales fall from my eyes, I'm able to see it more accurately, something that's been there all a freaking long, right, been there, I just became awake to it. Now I can have some fearlessness and some courage to actually do something about it, right? Then up here, we actually step into peace about the situation. Now I'm not having to look at the situation with anxiety or worry of how am I going to figure this out, or I have to strategize, or I have to be the provider or the protector for the situation. I'm actually able to look at that situation and have a sense of peace about it. And then at the very top, my favorite part of this whole thing is that then we can expect creative solutions. Here's the reality of this. God in his kindness, and this is my take, should give that caveat. God in his kindness, I don't think he gives us creative solutions in a false identity. I think that because he's kind, he wouldn't do that. I actually think that's why we have so many crime podcasts, like true crime podcasts, because it's wild the things that people do when they get a creative idea in a false identity.
Yeah.
That's what serial killers are. That's what really intelligent robbery schemes are. That's what drug dealers are doing. When you get a really creative idea and you mix it with a false identity, what happens? The same thing that happened with Saul: damage, destruction, separation, death, fear, like so I think God in his kindness is saying, like, hey, I actually have some ideas about how we could reach this situation, but if you can't believe that you are who I say you are, yeah, then in my kindness, I don't want to give you a bunch of good ideas. Yeah. Which he's really kind. So his first invitation is always like, hey, are you willing to come out of that cage and for me to tell you who you actually are and who I actually am? Because what you're believing about you, it's that he's like, who do you think you are, Dave? And it's not like in a demeaning way. It's like who do you think you are? And if you think it's that small and that insignificant, then who do you think I am? Yeah. Like, let me tell you who I am, Dave. Let me tell you who you are, right? Now I can look at this exact same situation and expect creative solutions to flow that are going to help me solve this problem, because I don't have what it takes to solve it on my own. I need him to help me learn how to solve the problem. Recently, I had the situation with my son where it's been a tough couple of, you know how it is when your kids are 20 and you're like, you're just out here doing your best, you know? And I was just having this thing, and I was like trying to communicate with him, and I just felt like every time I was trying to communicate, it was a flop. And so I'm brushing my teeth one morning. I knew that I needed to talk to Blake about something, and I just was like kind of dreading it. Like, I'm just probably going to talk too much. I'm probably going to offend him. You know, I'm just kind of like in this, you know? And so I finally get to like, what am I actually afraid this says about me? Like, I'm incapable of communicating with my kid. Yeah. I'm a bad mom. That's genuinely, and I wouldn't say that out loud, but that's what I believe.
Yeah.
As I started asking myself that question.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, God, what do you have to say about it? And the Lord spoke to me very quickly, like, you are his safest place. Okay. So what do you want me to do about that? That's always the questions. What do you want me to know about this? And what do you want me to do about it? Because I don't want my own ideas get me to destruction.
Right.
His ideas lead to peace, right? And so, okay, you say I'm a safest place. Now I can look at that situation and not think I'm Blake's mom that has this thing that I have to talk to him about that's going to cause conflict. Now I get to say I'm Blake's safest place. I still have to talk to the kid about something that he doesn't want to talk to me about. But now I realize I'm a safest place. Now I have some fearlessness and less and like more courage about like I can approach him knowing that God calls me a safest place. I can look at it with peace. Now when I approach him, I'm not coming to him in all of this anxiety with like, I don't want to say this to you, but I kind of have to, like that whole thing. I just got to be like, hey. And then I asked, as I'm sitting there, like, how do you want me to go about this? I heard this ridiculous thing. Make grandma's hot dish. I don't even like grandma's hot dish. I don't like it. It's all this condensed soups. I don't like the noodles. I don't even like it. But you know who really loves it?
Oh, like a 7-can casserole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who really loves it? My kid.
Yeah.
What's the fastest way to get a 20-year-old in the kitchen to have a hard conversation? Make grandma's hot dish.
Yes.
That wasn't my idea.
Same kid.
That was not my idea.
Yep.
Like that would have never been on my list of things. I would have tried to strategize the conversation.
Yeah.
I would have tried to make myself seem whatever, like try to make it more comfortable for him or whatever. Instead, I just say, okay, God, you say I'm a safest place. What is the safest place gonna do in this situation? Make grandma's hot dish. I didn't even have to go knock on his door and be like, can I talk to you? I made the hot dish. He came out, sat at the table and made himself a plate. And I got to have a very peaceful conversation, having hot dish that I don't even like.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that was his idea, not mine. But I can't, if I'm down here, he's not going to give me a creative solution.
Yeah.
But why? I'm just going to cause destruction.
Yeah. I think too, one thing that you probably saw through that is that once you stepped out and you set that fear aside, God provided a creative solution for you, Jenny. Is that the next time you did it?
Exactly.
Like, oh, this
Yep.
isn't so scary.
Yep.
I didn't need to be
Yep.
fearful of this. Or maybe I'm a little bit scared, but I did it before.
Yep.
And it didn't go as bad as I thought it was going to.
Well, and it's that same
I do it
thing.
a little bit better. And, you know, I
Yep.
feel that because I laugh with our Pastor Jeremiah about Paul. And I thought that Romans for a while was my favorite book in the Bible.
I heard you tell me that.
And then I reread it and I'm like, man, Paul's kind of judgy against the Gentiles. Like, but you see it in him.
Yes.
You know, you see his relationship with God changing his purpose, his mission, him not being the provider, him starting to see God as a provider,
Yep.
and how that changed him. But it was gradual.
Yes.
And it took work.
It's always gradual. He's always kind and gentle with us. He's never like, right now, like, give me that right. It's never that way. It's always like, oh, because it happened. I mean, that was a couple of months ago that happened with Blake. I still then find myself doing that same pattern. Like, I gotta go talk to Blake about this thing. God, what do you say about this? Remember, you're a safest place. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Let me,
Yeah, I don't know about you, but this is the further you get away from it too, and the more time you let pass, that starts to reform.
Yes. And that's the groove. That's the groove in the record. It's like the more I practice, and that's the part that I think, that's the identity exchange process, really. And we do lots of different types of things with identity exchange, but this is just one that I find most, for me, this is a daily practice of like, what am I, and like I said, I look at my calendar. What's the thing I may be dreading or anxious or not wanting to do today? Like, what am I believing it says about me? Okay, God, what do you say about me in this situation? Now I walk out of my bathroom. I walk out of my bathroom with a fresh sense of identity of who God says I am today. Now I'm looking at the whole day with less fear and more courage, more peace, and and that's the joy to me of following Jesus. It's like, as I'm going about my day, and I can tell you about this week alone has, in the last 3 days, I'm like, God, what in the world? Like I've watched I started Sunday night with a to-do list of things that I was not capable of for the week. Like, genuinely, like, it's so, the stuff I had to do so far above my pay grade. Like, I don't have any education to support what I'm being asked to do. I don't have enough time. I'm already a person with a full schedule. Where am I going to fit all this in? I sat with the Lord on Sunday night. Like, this is what and I just heard him say, I've got it. I'm like, okay. It is Thursday morning. Wednesday night at 9:21, I looked at the clock and I realized that everything that I needed to get done plus some was done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of me. It's because when he asks us to do something, he will always provide the resources to handle it. Always. He will never lead us into something that he's like, well, I'm only going to meet you halfway. Like, no, he will whole ass. God whole asses.
Yeah.
Like, he will meet us in all of it, and he will provide a way for us to do the thing he's asking us to do.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if we can say that heretical. That God whole asses.
No, that's hilarious. And my God has a sense of humor.
Yeah. I'm some Christian, so sorry if you're offended by that. God, wait, how about that?
Okay.
Yeah. That's okay too. I don't know.
Maybe you have some identity.
So, yeah.
So that, man, Jenny, and I'm sorry, Jen, I've heard from my wife, she actually just asked, hey, why don't you tell people that? Like,
no, dude.
Being called Jen. So now every time I said Jenny today, I'm like,
you can say it. I tell them I don't care. It's both. I'm both.
okay, what? You should tell.
Do you know the story of this though?
No.
So I've been Jen most of my life, and then I came to Westbridge for the first time as an attender.
Okay.
And I didn't have church background. I didn't like church people. I didn't want to go to church. And so I kind of put church in the same category as the DMV. But when you go to the DMV, you have to give them like your birth certificate name. So when I came to church, I thought that I had to give them my DMV name. So I was like, hi, I'm Jenny. Nice to meet you. So then and then a couple of years later, I end up on staff. And so now I know like a few thousand people that know me as Jenny.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the people in my life have called me Jen. And so it's this weird, so neither one of them feels more true. It's just, so you can go either way. My husband calls me both. My parents call me both. My sister calls me both. So
you just need to recruit. I'll try to help turn the culture. Who's Jen? Who's Jenny? Oh, Jenny Becker? Okay. So we talked about, maybe that's an identity thing that you have worked.
I mean, honestly, I've actually asked the Lord about that. Like, what do you call me? But he doesn't call me either one of those. He calls me God or grace by God. But to explain nothing to prove is actually what he calls me.
I'm not going to roll around with God-given names because I'm not going to be it's king.
Yeah.
I'm sure people really appreciate that.
Yes.
I think too much of myself already.
Yep.
So did not disappoint. And this would definitely be one, like, I get a step back. All those answers. So just to be clear, so we talked through identity today, Jen, and I did not ask for any material up front. You ran through this exercise with me. All these answers were right at the tip of my heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested to go back through. I have some work to do. Mm-hmm. Have some clarity of the work that needs to be done.
You actually have the work that you need to do, though, is actually doing less work.
Yeah.
That's actually learning to receive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's actually inviting you to do less work and more receiving.
I love that.
Which is really cool.
Okay. I'm going to listen to all this and gather the wisdom that has passed from him through you today. And I guess with that, I foresee a third episode down the road. And
this is an experiment. I didn't know. Usually this session takes an hour, and so I didn't really know what to, but knowing you, I'm like, well, we'll see what happens, So feel free, to use this, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think that
I don't typically do this with people and with an opportunity for everybody to watch either. So just know,
if it's okay, I'd love to share your information.
Yeah.
As we did the first podcast, and I don't know if anybody reached out. I think close. I think people definitely, it was one of the most listened to episodes I had. It's like you 1 and 2 with another, and I guess share.
Sure.
It's for it to be a competition, but people, it was received.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with what was discussed in that, and so this will be the same. Mm-hmm. So thank you for getting this out there. Anything else? I guess if we put a pause on identity, because I'd love to you come back, and I'd love to talk values.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I've discussed kind of the track that I'm God's place in my heart is to move people to what are their values that they'll represent as kind of like a compass in life, minor truth and capability. And so I shared before the podcast, if I'm in a scenario where I can't be truthful and authentic, then that's either an indication that I need to just be truthful and authentic in the situation. I'm holding something back, or I really am restrained and I need to find a new environment to be in. I want to progress to that.
Yep. I actually think, Dave, as you said those resonated as identities to me more than they did values.
Really?
Yeah. That as God looks at you, that he says, like, yep, there's truth, there's capability, especially knowing the places of woundedness that you talked about today. I'm sorry, that got me. Those actually feel more like identities than they do values.
Well, I could still put more to talk about.
Yeah. Yep.
When you said to ask God, what do you say about me? Mm-hmm. And I will just say this, that he's provided me a voice that people will hear, that is just his truth. I think a lot of people hear me, and for some reason there's no BS. And there isn't. I've never lived with it because I lived around it.
Totally.
And I never want that to attach to me. And so I've always said, like, if you're my friend, you're going to know you're my friend. If I love you, you're going to know I love you. If I'm trying to help you, you're just going to get it. Like, you're going to understand that I'm just trying to help you. There's very few people I'm around and been blessed to work with or be around or be a friend with or in relation with that have started and said, I thought Dave was getting at something or he was having
never.
It just isn't there. And that's for him. That's great. I love that. It just takes you to relation, takes you authenticity very quickly.
Absolutely.
In a friendship. That's all I ever wanted. I just want.
That's what that little kid in the back of the car did.
Yeah. So, I guess anything else in closing, and we'll put a pause on this one. And this was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you so much.
So fun.
This was more. I often say about friends that I'm running with now, when you get around authentic people, people always say, like, careful when you meet your heroes or you spend time with people, because the more you spend time with people, they'll be revealed. And that's true. But what I'm finding out is the crowd that I'm running with now, the more time I spend with them and you see the authenticity, there's so much more. Like, I thought Jenny was X, and now after today, the Lord working with her, the Lord speaking through her, what he's placed on her heart, she is more. And that's awesome, isn't it?
It's always more. It's always, like I said, he's always asking us, like, who do you think you are? Like, like, genuinely.
Who told you?
And
that's really stuck.
Yes.
You gotta stop. Cut the BS. Cut the BS with yourself.
Yes.
You're saying you're putting yourself back. You're putting those chains on. You're closing that door, and you're saying, I'm just gonna stay.
Maybe that's the questions. Look, who do you say I am? Like, and he's like, who do you think you are? Like, oh, that's right, I forgot.
I see all
that's right.
Too.
I
don't see it. I did see it myself. I thought maybe that's just what I deserved or where I needed to be or where I have to be because I'm beholden. But I see those people every day, and I tell my wife, look, I just wish they would see what is inside them, the value that they hold. When they speak, people listen. When they're around and they love, people feel loved. And that's
so good.
Well, did not disappoint. Thank you so much for your time. Hey, Jenny.
Absolutely.
And I mean, as always, thank you for listening in to myself and Jen. On the Stronghold. We're going to get that going on the Stronghold podcast.
Starting a trend, a Jen trend.
That's right. Jen trend.
Thanks, you guys.